Welcome to another Friday marketing session of the AI and GTM Clawllective. And today we've got Corey. Is it Hines or Haines?
Haines. I know the
Haines.
I trips people up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's throwing me off, but I get thrown off with spelling all the time. So don't take it personally. And he's gonna go over this competitor creative or creative competitor alternative pages, agentic flow that he has created. And I know you've got a lot of stuff in the hub, and I was looking at it a few weeks ago, actually. I'm like, there's a lot of really cool stuff in there. And when we were talking, you mentioned that this actually pulls in a lot of the different skills that you've been creating that are in the hub into more of a workflow on researching competitors, generating useful content against them, and then turning it into pages that have a chance for ranking and converting, which I think is the battle a lot of people are facing now. And anyhow, we have a lot to learn today, and I don't want to eat up any more time trying to explain it because I think Corey will do a much better job. With all that, I will pass it over to you, Corey.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. And I'm excited to redeem myself, actually, because for those of you who were at Chili Palooza, I did one of the rapid fire demos. And I warned people that I'm a daredevil and I like to do the live demos. And sometimes it doesn't always work out. And like at the very last step, I just couldn't get my local host to show the final result. And so I'm hoping that today will be my redemption arc and that I can actually show a full demo and actually lots of demos, a lot more than I was going to
You
do in
you
my.
you handled it very well, though. It was seamless. It looked like it was part of the demo. It didn't
I
fall on
tried.
its
I
face.
I
Yeah.
I triple checked things last night
Mm.
and this morning. So
All right.
the only thing that can derail me this time maybe is like an Anthropic outage, which happened yesterday actually in a little demo I was doing. And so things happen. We're just going to troubleshoot and figure it out along the way. I have more than 5 minutes this time, and so hopefully I'll be able to debug and figure out anything that goes off the rails as they do. But one of the other things I want to mention too is just about the whole, like my goal for this is not to be like, hey, look, you can do this one super specific workflow that I'm going to show you. My goal is to be like, hey, here's how you can take this workflow as a template, and then you can transpose this across any other workflow that you want to come up with. Because the idea here is that we're not just working on like one skill and one output, but that we're really showing the behind the scenes creative process so that you can take this and do this across anything else that you want to. And one of my big goals for this in particular is to show like stacking skills together where we're combining multiple skills. Um, and we're working with this agentic harness and we're kind of iterating along the way, but we're showing how each step of the way there's other things that we can pull in versus just relying on like one big long prompt, essentially. We're also probably going to have a lot of downtime in between the prompts. And so I'm going to be relying on you guys for questions, comments, talking points, hot takes, right? And so we might have we'll have a little bit of time to kill in between each of the prompts. Let me share my screen and then I can start to explain what we're going to go over. So two things. I am in a terminal client called Solo. There's lots of terminal clients. You don't even have to use the terminal. You could use Claude on the desktop or really like Claude, since it merged with Cowork, is pretty adequate for this kind of stuff. If you ask it to generate artifacts or you ask it to essentially spin up a mini app. I'm technical, and so this is like my preferred workflow of doing this kind of agentic AI workflow stuff where I'm going into a terminal and I'm doing things on a local host and I'm actually like writing, creating files, uploading to GitHub, that kind of stuff. Don't be intimidated by that. In fact, I was telling someone the other day, like GitHub and this whole terminal developer style of workflow that I think us marketers are trying to adopt is actually like the safest place in the world to work. One of my employees actually was like, "Oh, I just don't want to like accidentally nuke someone's GitHub repo and do something wrong." And I was like, "That's totally valid, but actually there's no reason to fear because That's what GitHub was created to prevent. Like it's literally version control software so that it has all the safeguards that you need in order to be able to just do work freely and creatively. So this is the terminal. I'll be doing things out of here. I'm not really even going to be like pushing anything, but I will show live what the results are here in my local host, which is just my own little locally rendered website here. And this is a demo environment that I've created. It's a fictional SaaS. It's called Formcraft. It doesn't look entirely vibe coded, but it still looks vibe coded. It just doesn't look horrendous. And so we'll be able to see like the live updates as we go, the pages we create, the things that we actually push. And again, this is the idea here is that we're not just asking AI to give us something that we have to go and implement and build. Like, no, you build it. You do it. You're the AI. You do all the work. I just want to be the orchestrator, the composer, the director, and the creative strategist. What is the prompt for today? The prompt for today is to create competitor alternative pages. How we're going to do that is we're going to go through a bunch of different skills, each one along the way, kind of showing a different aspect of how we can use AI to generate the data and the content that we need to generate these types of pages and then get them live on the website. So the first one that we're going to be going through is actually this product marketing skill. And I'll talk about it as it runs here. And it'll probably ask me some questions. It's AI, it's non-deterministic. Even though I've demoed this maybe like 20 times now, it's always a little bit different every time that I do it, which is the fun part. Um, why am I doing this? If we go to my repo here for marketing skills, we go to the GitHub, scroll down here to what's called the README file. This is just an explanation of what is in the repo. So it's this friendly kind of text version of what we're looking at. How I've found things to work really the best for AI is I'm loading the context window, so to speak, of anything that I'm working on by having it go and refer back to past things that I've worked on. Now, one of those artifacts is this product marketing MD file that I'm going to generate using my product marketing skill. And we'll go back here in a second to look at what it's outputting and what it's doing. The idea here is that I found that anytime I worked on another skill, hey, let's make emails, let's make social content, let's make video content, let's work on pop-ups, so on and so forth. AI would ask me the same questions over and over again. Oh, well, like, what is your product? Who's your audience? What are your differentiators? All these product marketing related kinds of questions. And if you're like me and you have like 20 SaaS companies as clients and then 20 different side projects as well, AI is not going to be able to remember all the right context for each one individually. And so I need a system so that it's not like we're not crossing wires here and I'm not confusing the AI with which project I'm working on. And oh, actually, shoot, it was working on the value proposition for SaaS A, and I'm working on SaaS B today. Um, so this product marketing skill is meant to be kind of like the glue between each one of the other skills and always in reference so that even as we update the product, as we update our positioning, as we update our customer research learnings, then this file gets updated. And now I always have the most up-to-date information to share with the AI. So what it's doing here in the terminal, it loaded the product marketing skill. You can see that it started to write a file called productmarketing.md, and MD stands for Markdown, very simple, and made this V1 draft. I can actually ask it, let's see, open the product marketing D file so I can see. Once you do this once, the idea here is that it's here forever. And now it's just always available on my computer. I can update this to GitHub if I want to, share it with the team, so on and so forth. I've structured this in a very specific way, just based on my own experience of what a good product marketing doc looks like, especially for an agent. You know, we don't want it to be like a book, 50,000 words, but we also don't want it to be like 500 words. We want it to be somewhere in between there. So we have basic information. Here's a one-liner, what it does. the category, the product type, the business model, target audience, personas, problems and pain points, competitors, which we're going to get into here in a second, differentiation, objections, the switching dynamics. I'm really big fan of jobs to be done, customer language. Now, looking at this now, some of this might be like, wait, that doesn't look right again. This is for a fictional SaaS, and we're pretty quickly vibe coding things. So now all of this is going to be maybe spick and span to the product marketer's standards. But anyways, we have all these kinds of data points for the AI to work with as context for what we're going to be working on.
Corey,
Now
I have
that
a
I have
question.
this,
Corey, I have a
yeah,
question. I'm not sure I understood. That's something that you had written ahead of this call, or it got generated? And if it did get generated, then how?
yeah, it actually just got generated right now. You can see
And
last
how,
updated
where did
was,
it find all this information about what the
yeah, so it's if you don't tell it or give it all the information to fill in this these data points, then it's basically going to go off of whatever it has already. So since I already had this demo environment set up with the Formcraft website, it was going off of the copy that I wrote on this website.
got it? Okay.
Yeah. But it's a good question because really and ideally, this would take actually a little bit of time to be like, hey, here's a doc from our sales team. Here's some recordings from customer conversations. Here, well, we'll get into some other things too about how to like fill in the gaps because we're not just going to rely on that doc for everything that we do. Um, but you can give it anything and everything that you want to. All right, gone through here. We have the demo environment. Let me go back here just to see, yeah, what the auto draft captured. So, right, it's just like, hey, let me take a first stab at this. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Again, I find that for most people, it's a little bit overwhelming to just look at a blank canvas and be like, okay, now the AI is asking me all these questions that I don't know if I know the answer to, and I don't want to give it the wrong information because then maybe it's gonna give me the wrong output. And so I basically tell the skill each time, hey, use whatever information you have and then ask questions, but give us something to look at because now I can come in, I can look at this doc that's hiding behind these windows here. I can look at this doc and now I can give feedback to the AI and now I can fill in the blanks. I can be like, oh, okay, this product type maybe isn't exactly what I thought, or oh shoot, actually it's going off of the wrong pricing tiers. I need to update that. And now I have the right context in here, so I feel good about moving forward. So
I
now we're
have the
going to move on.
same question, Corey. I see
Yeah.
there's a competitive landscape there. That was
hmm
research and generated on the fly, or you had already pre-populated it?
Yeah, this one I did before because I think there's a little section here on the website just about like uh, you're probably used to using tools like Google Forms or Typeform, so it's just extracting those as probable competitors.
Right.
Mhm. Okay, so now stage two, we have our stage one was we have our product marketing context doc. Now we're kind of like filling our own context window about, all right, here's all the information that I probably want to give the agent to start to work on something like this with the end view in mind that I'm going to be creating these competitor alternative pages. Step two is we're going to do some research on those competitors. And so I have this again set up to help me because it's sometimes hard to track it, but I can tell it, great, let's move on to the competitor profiling skill and begin. Oh, I only caught the last part of that. It's a bummer. Let's try that one more time. Great, let's move on to the competitor profiling skill and move on. Oh, it really doesn't like that first part. It'll probably get this. And in fact, this isn't something that I show pretty often, is that I think the meta for working with AI 2 years ago was like the prompt is everything. You have to be so specific. Write your big long paragraph about everything. And now actually a lot of the data shows that that's actually counterproductive for AI. You actually want to rely on it to do most of the heavy lifting as far as like thinking goes. And then you want it to ask you questions to clarify. But when you over prompt, you actually confine the AI to not do all the things that you might not, that you might want it to. And it's a little bit of that like, you don't know what you don't know. So when you over prompt, you're potentially leaving some things on the table, and skipping some steps that the AI might take. And so I actually try to keep things pretty brief. And as long as I have my outline of my workflow of these are my skills, this is the order of operations, these are the checkpoints that I'm going to have, I really leave it up to the agent to run through these workflows and I just kind of let it rip. I'll explain this competitor profiling skill while it goes through this. Um, Going back here. And here's another nifty tip is that you guys probably already know this because you're a bunch of smart technical marketers in the Clawllective who are all very curious. Um, but anytime you want to know what is in a skill, and I have to answer this question because I get it quite literally every day. Hey, what's in the skill? How does it work? There's good news. All you have to do is go into the GitHub, click into the file tree, and then look at the document. And it's amazing because it's right here. And so this is everything that I'm feeding to the agent. Now there's kind of specific formatting about what is in a skill. This up here is called the front matter. This says the name of the skill, how the skill and when the skill should be invoked, and then any kind of like version data just to help keep track of past iterations that you have. You can see here that one of the first instructions that the skill is giving the agent is to check for the product marketing context document first. That is always our source of truth. Hey, go back here. We're like keeping in the guardrails. And then before profiling, confirm the competitor URLs, your product, the level of depth, focus areas. We have some kind of core principles about this is how we want to profile our competitors. And then when it returns the data, we want it to do it in a pretty specific way. And so we're telling it to return the data in this format in particular. And this will make it a little bit easier when we're asking it to structure the data, to then take that data and inject it into the website and save it in a structured way. Particularly when we're working on something like a competitor alternative page, anything related to programmatic SEO, which hopefully we'll have time to get to towards the end. We want to ask the agent and the AI to structure the data. We're not really used to this as marketers because we're used to working out of like Google Docs and Notion files, right? But there's lots of different ways to structure data, files, formats, and this just makes life a little bit easier for the agent because, again, it's more guardrails for the agent to work within. And now we have the actual research process. Um, there's a lot of different ways we can go about this. This skill is training it to use a tool called Firecrawl, which is a web crawler. There's lots of these out there. You really don't even need a web crawler per se if you just want to use Playwright or have it do Google searches. Or again, if you want to go feed the information that you've already done, then you can insert that here. We're having it scrape reviews from review sites. We're having it extract certain data points from each of the competitors. We have SEO and market data. Again, this is my skill, and my intention is that because this is open source, you can fork this and make your own version of how you want to profile competitors. So by no means is this the end all be all of how competitor profiling should be done. It's really a template for you to work with.
Corey, can I ask a question here?
Yeah.
What's the difference between like opening up a terminal and running this in like Claude Code
Mhm.
versus just using like the desktop app version of Claude?
Ah, I see.
Or can I
Yes.
add one more question to that? It looks like you're in something called Solo,
Mhm.
which I just pulled up, which I think is this part of this equation, right? Because you're working in
Yeah,
Solo.
because like I think that for me, everything you're describing from like creating the markdown file onward is very intuitive and makes sense to me. It's almost like
Mhm.
the beginning setup piece of this that I'm
Yeah.
like having a hard time wrapping my brain around.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Again, this is the workflow I'm used to because I've been doing this kind of like developer stuff for like 3 years now. And so this feels very intuitive. And at first, when we first started working with these AI agents in marketing, this was the only option because there was nothing else that allows you to use an agentic harness like Claude Code that can do all these fancy things and opens up a whole world of possibilities and capabilities for AI. Today, it's a different story. Now you don't have to use a terminal. You can use the Claude desktop app. And the only reason why I'm not showing that is because I have so much of my workflow like embedded into this terminal. And you would see the exact same thing because in the Claude desktop app, you have the chat and then you have the code, um, two different modes in there, right? And what that Claude Code mode in the Claude desktop app is doing is it's actually running a terminal on your computer. So it's important just to know that all the terminal is it's a tool on your computer, just like a browser is. So we're all used to just doing everything out of the browser because this is the internet that we know, right? And this is like SaaS. It's software as a service on the cloud. Where is the cloud? The cloud is in the browser. Well, you don't have to do everything from the browser. In fact, if you do something from the terminal is really just the back door into your computer that can use any one of the tools at your computer's disposal. Why I use it personally here and why I think you should use, if not this, then Claude Code in the Claude desktop app is because this allows you to write and create files on your computer. It allows you to spin up multiple browsers. There's this thing called a headless browser where it's actually running Chrome under the hood to go do these web searches for you. You can save API keys. You can make API calls. You can integrate all these other tools to be at your disposal that you're just not going to be able to do at least as easily from Claude in the browser, for example, if you're just using chat. Again, I think that that's like becoming less true when we have things like MCPs, when there's a lot more integrations available, but like everything is available here from the terminal. So I like to just give myself all the
So,
possibilities.
Corey, that was a very detailed explanation, and thank you very much. If I want to summarize for Caitlin's question, I think it's fair to say that you would get the same results if you were just went to Cloud and run these things. In this case that you're showing, is that correct?
Yes, yes,
Right.
you can.
But
So
question though,
that is case. That's Caitlin, that you don't need to worry about it. You can go your own sweet way and use it in the harness that you want. And then Lisa, you had a question on, so you've heard this idea of open harness versus closed harness. Is that right? You would like to clarify that? For sure, Corey is an expert. He can tell us.
Sure, I'll spare the poll. So, you're talking about agentic harness, Corey, and let's say I wanted to gauge the level of everyone's like awareness here, but I'm also, there's a difference between a closed harness and an open harness, and so I think it would just be helpful for clarification for everyone to understand what you're meaning by that and when you use the term.
I actually don't know the open versus closed harness
I,
terminology.
I think I think it's
Um,
a I would think that it's open source versus not, right? I can't think of anything else.
oh,
Yeah, like some
Yeah.
so the harness being the place where you basically use the AI, which can be a terminal like what we're looking at, and the different version of the terminal, which is command line, or more like a broader experience. That's the harness way
mhm.
what you use. And the context I've heard was open versus closed was open source versus not open source. I'm not aware of any other
So
distinction.
like Lovable would be a closed source harness, whereas Claude
That's right.
Code or OpenAI Cursor would be an open source harness. And so it starts with like the environment that you're building in and what you can
Yeah,
connect it to.
I
Yeah.
I'm not sure that maybe open closed is the right terminology there, but there is, you're right, there's a distinction between those different types of tools. So when I say a harness, and I think that like that they need some product marketing help, right? On like the terminology here is like, what is a harness? Like that's really the word that we chose for this. The way that I would define a harness is it's a specialized tool for working with LLMs. That's all that it is, right? So think about the big AI providers. You have OpenAI, Anthropic, Google. Let's just use those three as the examples. They have these LLMs, they have multiple models. They have Opus and Fable, and there's the GPTs, and then there's the Sonnets and the X, Y, and Z. So a harness is just a tool to interface with any and every one of those models. And of course, Anthropic is going to be making a harness that is specialized in working with their models. And of course, OpenAI is going to make a harness that's specialized in working with their models. And so, um, but I can use Claude Code in my terminal. I can use Codex in my terminal. I can use any one of the harnesses. Now, there's a different class here, which is where we're talking about like a lovable, for example. And a lovable is actually essentially using Claude Code or Codex under the hood. And that's kind of where things get maybe closed, is that you don't know, you don't have full control over what the harness is doing or how it works or how it's configured. Another reason why, again, I like to use Claude Code in my terminal or Codex in my terminal because I have full control over the way that it's configured and I know exactly what it's doing. I can investigate it versus a lovable is going to be kind of one layer abstracted and I can't see exactly what it's doing or why it's doing, what the boundaries are of what I can do.
Great explanation. Thank you, Corey. Johan, you have a question?
Yeah, I had a quick one for Corey specifically, but the way you are doing it too is you lower the amount of tokens that you are using. Because if you use Cloud Code, it's going to do a bunch of things on the back end to do all of the steps that you went through, all of the workflow that you have, take tokens to implement, right? So you are really controlling that more or better, and you have a full control over whatever is happening, and also lower your overall cost. You should be, no? Correct?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. And I think that's again one of the other things that the skills do really well because one of the things that really burns tokens unnecessarily is the AI trying to figure out how to do something and trying and then failing, trying and failing, trying and failing. So when I tell it exactly what to do and I have it all defined really neatly in a skill with my tools and with my boundaries that I've given it, that I'm giving it like this path where I can just very easily go and navigate all the things I need to do versus like going off road, getting stuck in a ditch, making a U-turn, going back around. That's where we get a lot of the token burn. Personally, again, I'm super spoiled because I've been on like whatever max plan they have since like the very beginning. So I've never thought about reducing my token usage personally. But for like my team, for anybody else who's just on like a pro subscription, um, you obviously do want to be mindful of your usage and want to make sure that you're not yeah, like unnecessary token burn also just means that uh, you're having to correct the AI more often than you want to be, and that things are taking longer than you want them to be.
And
Well,
I like the way you explain it, Corey. I told people that Claude to open a door will do a triple axle, two cartwheels, and then we'll close the door rather than just open that door. But it
Yeah,
happens very often, so it makes sense.
it does. Yeah, it really does.
All right, we should keep going and then save some of these great questions for when you're running something and have time to fill. Okay,
Yeah,
let's do
yeah.
it.
Great questions, though. I love it. And we're doing a great job burning the time in between. Just to recap here, we're going with a competitor profiling skill. Um, if I do control O, again, this is a bunch of like fancy developer stuff in the terminal. Um, but unfortunately, my formatting here is not very good. I don't know why it's all coming up white, but you can kind of see here that it's generating this doc as we go. And really what it did was it made a bunch of documents based on all the data that it grabbed from these competitors. I won't go into detail here, but this is some of the magic of working with AI is like, hey, it just figures it out, and I just have this amazing output afterwards. Um, it's going to return kind of the summary of the findings. We don't care a ton about this. What we care about is that it actually returned data And so now we have, again, more contextually relevant information that is based on real facts from the internet and not fictional hallucination slop. That's the main thing that we're trying to avoid here is just AI making something up and or going and grabbing bad data. So we're trying to fill it with really good data. Now we'll get into the meat of it is where I'm going to run the competitor's skill. And again, I don't have to even be super, super specific. It should know based on me asking about a skill, which skill to go and grab because I already have it installed. It would work the exact same way on the Claude desktop app in that code mode, which gives you all the capabilities and kind of unlocks every tool that the agent harness would want to be able to use. And this skill is going to take all of the data that we've worked on for the competitor profiling, for the product marketing skill about, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, hey, we have Formcraft, my fictional SaaS, and now we have all these competitors, and now do a one-to-one comparison between Formcraft and each of those competitors. So we used one skill to define everything that Formcraft is good at, and we've used one skill to take a look at a bunch of data about our competitors. Now, this next skill, step 3, is going to be teaching the AI harness how to create these pages and make each of those comparisons. It'll go through here. And again, I apologize for the formatting here. I think it's because I need to make an update and these tools update all the time. I will say that this is one of the
For sure, the white and
downsides.
white is confusing, yes.
Right, right. One of the downsides of working with these like developer tools is that developers are not as picky about their UI and UX as maybe the average person. They have a higher tolerance for
White
things
and
that don't
white.
look great. Yes, exactly. I know. Apparently they have X-ray vision or something because
Right.
anyone reads this. I can scroll over here just to take a look at, again, what it's doing so you understand contextually. Oh, here it is. It's right below it. This is the skill that it's going through. This is based on, again, my own experience creating all these pages for clients, for my own projects, for past jobs, right? I'm just trying to codify everything that I know and think works well for these competitor alternative pages and then put it into a skill. A little bit of backstory about this too is, when I launched the marketing skills repo, I really had no plans about it being this big thing that everybody used. Selfishly, I just wanted to see what other people were doing. And I figured if there was another technical marketer out there like me who knew even what open source meant, then they could contribute to it. And then I could also know what they're doing because I didn't want to be reliant on my own experiences. So again, this is my opinionated way of doing things. Like these are Corey Haines' marketing skills, but you can very easily make adjustments to this and say, okay, now this is, Lisa's competitor's skill, and this is our take on how to do this. Or for Chili Piper, we don't believe in doing X, Y, and Z or bad mouthing our competitors, and so we want to change the language or change the way that we compare. Everything is customizable. Um, but we have page formats. I found that there's kind of 4 major formats for these alternative pages. We have a singular competitor alternative. We have plural, like alternatives. And then we have you, like Formcraft versus a competitor. And then we have competitor versus competitor. Um, I think that it helps, even if we don't create all of these different formats, it helps the AI to just understand the big picture so that we're creating the right URL structure, for example, right? Because if we kind of say, hey, I just want to create a couple of competitor alternative pages and put them on slash compare, and then later you're like, oh shoot, actually we have all these competitor versus competitor pages. Now I have to redo the URL structure. Or maybe the agent is just going to make it up for you. So the more specific, the better. This is my way of doing things. It doesn't have to be your way. But I do think that the lesson here is that give it the big picture, help it to understand maybe the types of things that you'll build on top of this in the future so that the little thing that you're doing now, it doesn't have to be redone later or reformatted uh, or restructured in some way.
Hey, Corey, question on this. I don't see any of these having an FAQ at the end, which is something I've been starting to do to help get cited. It makes it easier for the LLMs to scan the page,
Mm-hmm.
and you can also add in kind of your own take in that case too. Is there a thought process behind it, or just it's just not something you're doing right now? Because I know you're saying you've found that these formats help you rank or get cited.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to just hear why you put these pieces into these, or like some of them have a TLDR, some of them don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the well, again, these are Corey Haynes' marketing skills. And so personally, I just always have had an aversion to FAQs. Like like nothing wrong with them. Like, you can do whatever you want. I don't care. But personally, I've always felt like FAQs are not that they're completely unnecessary, but that people can over rely on FAQs to communicate information that should have just been better communicated in the main page body anyways. Uh, Now I know that there's a lot of talk about, oh, the AI loves FAQs because it's like super structured, and like I think that's all totally valid. Um, I don't have them here in these page templates. Maybe I should update that. We could totally add it here just to see what that looks like as part of the workflow. But it's definitely not a like, oh, there's no intentional strategic reason that I'm leaving it out, essentially.
Okay.
Corey, I'm
Yeah.
trying to understand. Are you suggesting that you would create all these different formats or just pick the ones that like you're like, look, I think format one is going to work the best for us. And so that's what we publish on the page. I guess I'm not quite following that.
Yeah, you like these are all at your disposal. So you can choose, I want to do format 1 and 2 and not 3 and 4. I can do all four, or I could just do format 2, for example.
Okay.
Totally up to you. But it's here in the skill because if I don't have all of the different options here in the skill, then those other options would have to live potentially somewhere else on another skill. And then that kind of gets confusing because it's separated contextually. Um, but everything in the skill is an option for you to choose from. Let's just take a look at, see what it made. Okay, we have some artifacts. What I'm going to tell it actually is, let's go ahead and build a sample page. Show me one page built, format 1. We can continue. If it looks good, update the localhost. Tell me it's 40. Just make sure this actually starts to go. It's also worth mentioning, again, I'm trying to like fly through a lot of this as fast as I can to make it interesting and so that everyone sees the big picture here. But you can spend all the time you want reading through what the agent is suggesting, going back and forth, clarifying, filling it with more data. Like my my recommendation would not be, hey, spend 1 hour creating 100 competitor alternative pages. Um, like at least spend a full day. Geez Louise, like be intentional, spend as much time as you think is necessary to get the level of quality and the output that you want to deliver. I want to show what's possible and that it's like, hey, we can get at least a V1 out here and live for us to review, especially something to even just like see and look at makes it a lot more tangible for like, okay, wow, I'm not just creating markdown files that I have to go send to my designer and then ask my developer to put it in his backlog. And then 2 months later, it gets live on the page. I'm actually pushing something live on the website. I am creating a PR. I am doing things. I am doing things autonomously, not even just the AI, right? Like I am autonomous as a marketer. I can create and publish and push things um, that you don't have to be reliant on someone else to do. And it doesn't have to sit in the backlog forever either. There's a bunch of gobbledygook here. This is code. Uh, you don't even have to know what any of it means. I know what it means, and it's not impressive. It's just a bunch of shorthands gobbledygook here. Great. So we gave us a little summary. Here's the full format 1 structure. It's going to give us an overview of the outline of the page. Every claim traces back to the pricing data scraped in stage 2. Oh yeah, okay, cool. It's even skipped a couple things that it would have had to fabricate because the data wasn't there. Let's go ahead and look at the page. And here's an actual page that we could push live at any point that we want to. And everything is supposed to be structured for good SEO. We have our breadcrumbs. We have this little guy here just marking what kind of page it is. We have a good H1 description, calls to action. I like to have these little summaries at the top because people like to skim and you just want to be like, look, I'm trying to pick a form tool. I'm not that picky. Just tell me which one I should go with. Lots of different things here about, again, this is just matching my style of writing these kinds of pages, but you can totally customize this according to what you want. We have this table, which again organizes things very structurally. A pricing comparison, who it's for and who it's not for, how many steps it takes to switch. Oh, look at that. Even it made FAQs and I didn't even ask it. That's amazing.
It heard Lisa.
Or maybe it was listening to
It was
us.
spying on the conversation. That's right.
Exactly. It knows too much. That's what happens when you work in
Because
the
you
terminal.
told it to make you rank, right?
Exactly.
Telling you they
Right.
work.
Exactly. It was like, oh, you want to rank? I gotta add FAQs. I got you. Yeah.
I missed
Okay.
that actually, Corey, on the SEO optimizations. It was part of your skill, or I presume it was, right? The structuring, the breadcrumbs, making SEO friendly.
Yes. Yeah. It's all in the skill there.
Skill, okay.
Again, when we're talking about skill stacking as well, one thing that I can show if we have some time or if someone wants to see it is I have a whole other skill that just does a very, very in-depth SEO audit technically, like looking through page structure and divs and H1s and all that kinds of stuff, metadata, schema, JSON LD, anything you can think of. But from like the page body perspective, yeah, this is all going to be SEO friendly and in the sense that it's like the information hierarchy is here and it's easy for Google to scan and it's clean, good code that loads fast and stuff like that.
And Corey, would you have these linked in your footer in some way, or how to
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that it's done that quite yet. And let's see, I just want to double check if it's maybe added uh, a note about that. That's a good question, actually. Let me ask that because that is a standard best practice.
And how would you handle it if you created, what if you had, because you were showing like 4 different versions, is it beneficial to have a bunch of these competitor pages to make sure you're ranking for any possible combination of things? And then let's say that you have 30 of these pages. Would you put all of those in your footer, or is that just like totally overwhelming to a user then to see kind of
Yes.
like all this? So what is the balance?
Yeah, 100%. Let me see if I can pull up an example here that may or may not still be true. Just to illustrate this, maybe first. Oh, yeah. I don't think I got rid of it. There's another one that does this. No, I'm not going to waste the time. Uh, totally up to you and your choice. My preferred way to go about this is normally I'll just have a column that says like compare, and then I can have little sub column headers that'll be like alternative, alternatives, other form tools, things like that. And then I can just list like the top 4 and then have another link below that'll be like see all. And then that should take them to the index page, like slash compare. So if these
Where
are
you have
slash
everything.
alternatives slash each of the competitors, then that can take them to this, which can have a link to all of the competitor comparison pages. I think that what we've found is, for one, and I'm going to skip this step for the sake of the demo, but a lot of this should really be informed by keyword research, very obviously, because that's what we want. That's like how we're tracking if we're ranking for these types of things. And we can go and look and say, okay, hey, Claude, use data for SEO or Ahrefs or SEMrush or whatever it is. And these are the keywords that I want to rank for. And then maybe we're going to make some assumptions about, I don't see the keyword data yet for X, Y, and Z competitor because they're kind of a niche startup. But I'm just going to assume that as their brand grows, that search traffic is going to be there. And so I'm going to create the page kind of ahead of time. Um, but for one, like, yes, I think all these pages should be live. How many you list in the footer is up to you. I think as long as these pages have good interlinking between them, then it's not going to matter which ones you show in the footer necessarily, if as far as that's a factor for ranking in Google for each of those pages. The other side of the coin here, we have SEO and then we have AEO, GEO, AI SEO, pick your flavor, is that these are all like really, really, really rich pages for LLMs to index and to ingest all the data of to use for answering users' questions when they're asking, hey, how do I compare or hey, Claude, I'm looking for a Typeform alternative. Or hey, Claude, how does Formcraft compare against Typeform? For one, if it already has that data indexed from your page, that's great. For two, it can go and do a web search and probably find your page to use as the basis for its answer to the user.
Do you have something specific in your skill to help that, or it just comes with the territory to help with
To
the
help with what?
AEO? So you said it's going to be
Mhm.
rich because that's going to, what I'm hearing that you're saying that it's the kind of information that the LMs like comparing things, that's at least what they could see. Do you have something additional in the skill that says or it's just what's
Yeah,
likely to happen?
skill stacking, baby. We just keep stacking more and more
All
skills on
right.
here.
You
Now you
have
know
one
why
of
I have
those. You have one of
It's
those.
just like,
Okay,
oh,
let's look
wait,
at it.
I need a skill for this, and then if I have a skill for that, and I need a skill for this, and and
Okay,
so
what do you have there?
yeah, so this one does an audit. It takes an index of each of the different platforms. Some of this is like teaching the AI the most up-to-date information about AEO versus
Mm.
um, SEO and like what modern AEO looks like versus just kind of yeah, because one of the problems, right, is that this is a very meta problem, is that there's lots of people making these assumptions and claims about how these LLMs work and what makes for good AEO. And then that content all gets indexed by the LLMs. And then they're regurgitating that information, but it might not even be true. So I tried to just
Mm.
curate all the information that I knew was like verifiably true, and then I try to update it as I find
You're
more
saying that
missing pieces of information.
the LLMs are lacking self-awareness. They believe what people
Yes.
say about them.
Yeah, right. Right, exactly. I mean, I wish I could think of an example, but there has been an example like this where oh, you know what it was? Yeah, actually it's this one right here. Initially it was super interesting. Initially, there was a lot of people who were like, hey, you have to have an lms.txt file on your website in order for AI to index the content on your website. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to scan the website. And so everybody was like on this train. AI was saying the same thing. And then all the AEO experts were like, no, you don't need that. You don't need an lms.txt. It's garbage. No one actually uses it. There's no data. There's no proof. And I was like, I don't think that's true. Like, how do you know that's true? Like, again, they're just conjecturing. And they're like, I don't think that's true, but they don't have any proof. And then I think it was back in like May or June, then Google basically verified in their algorithm that they do use lms.txt. But by that point, if you had asked AI if it needed lms.txt, it would say no, because all of the AEO experts were like, well, no, you actually don't need it. It's false.
That's crazy.
So again, it's like,
That's
man, you got
crazy.
to know who you're listening to and like whose advice you're following because it could be completely wrong. And the AI could be
If you want
completely
to
wrong because
test,
it's
that would be a
regurgitating other people.
that'd be a great A/B test to just put up the same content side by side, one with the LLMs, not text embedded
But
in it.
you know, I've talked to enough LLM specialists. I mean, people scrunch, Webflow. No one knows. There is no definitive answer on
Yeah, I
this
can
one.
imagine because you
Right.
sell them the process, so you don't know what's
Yeah.
happening behind the scene, right?
Well, and
That's what
it's
Lisa said would be the you could test to see if it works. In
right.
the
I think
absence
the
of that
things
Melanie,
that
let's make sure we put LLM.text on our website.
It doesn't hurt.
Let
That's
us
what
say
everyone
yes,
is telling
exactly,
you.
right, exactly.
We did,
But,
of course we did.
okay,
and the
glad
thing
to hear
that
that.
is that it's not even that it's not that no one knows, it's that no one knows for sure, and that it changes so often that no one knows if it's still true,
Fair.
which is difficult, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's a new model like every week, it seems like, let alone all the updates they make to the model, the harness, the underlying infrastructure, and all the things that go on. I mean, these guys are working at like a breakneck speed. And so we're just trying to keep up. Like I thought it was hard to keep up with the Google algorithm updates when they happened like once every 6 months, and then we all were like, "Oh, what do we do?
All
Oh,
right.
now it's eats." Like, man, AEO is 100 times faster and harder to figure out than traditional SEO.
Corey,
Indeed.
how are you building your skills? What's your process behind putting these together? Are you looking for finding other people's skills and then like modifying it? Are you like brain dumping into AI and having it categorized for you? Like, how do you actually go through the process of building your skills?
Yeah. So two parts. One, again, part of the backstory. I've been using Claude Code for like 2 years now. And before that, I was using Cursor. I was just button matching, like accept all, vibe coding. And so I was like very familiar with this whole workflow and very like up to speed with agentic stuff that was happening. And then Anthropic back in January, I believe early January or maybe late December, came out with the actual skills protocol. And when they announced it, it immediately clicked for me because for one, I have been creating all these SOPs for my agency because without an SOP in your agency, you're just cooked. It's just not going to work. You have to have like these repeatable processes, right, that you follow for clients. For two, I've been creating a ton of content online forever. Like I have ebooks, newsletters, um, courses, slide decks, you name it. Like just a lot of content out there to for me to draw from. Number three was because I was using Cursor before Claude Code. Cursor had this thing that they called Cursor rules, and a Cursor rule was really a skill before a skill, and they kind of like missed their shot with this and making that like the standard that everybody was used to. And all that a Cursor rule was it was a long prompt or as long as you want it to be that gets loaded into the chat conversation at the right context. So when I saw skills, I was like, oh, this is what cursor rules should have always been. It's open source. Anthropic made it like this is going to be a big deal. And so, and ironically, very meta, Anthropic, when they release skills, they released their own skill for creating skills called Skill Creator. And so this has all of the instructions for an agent to help you turn whatever
Mm.
process, SOP content you have into a skill for you. And then you can choose to keep it private or you can open source it. You can upload it to your team GitHub. You can do whatever you want with it, right? But at the end of the day, a skill is 90% this one MD file. So it's, you know, it's the skill creator and then this actual like skill.md. They all have that same protocol. The other 10% is these other folders where we have scripts, references, assets. Maybe I can find one here. Yeah, references, right? So these are other documents that I've put in this skill folder, not just the skill file itself, but the skill folder that gives it additional information. Because one of the limitations, I guess, and like guardrails of how they've created skills is that you don't want to give the agent too much information. Again, if you give it like a 50,000 word book, that's too much as a skill. So they actually limit it to 500 lines of code. So anything else that you want to give the agent, you want it to be able to, in that 500 lines of code, tell it, oh, there's these other files. Go look at those if you need more information. hey, the user just asked a question about citations versus recommendations. Go look through the references folder, find the citations versus recommendations, and now it can load this document in here for the right context to load this information. That was probably a way longer answer than you wanted, but hopefully that helps.
Well, that was a detailed answer. Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
Corey. Lisa, I think we are out of time.
I know. This is so good. I could listen to you share. I mean, this is really helpful, but also the way you've structured it is so useful. So thank you for taking the time in your busy schedule in the middle of buying a house and getting married to come and show us all this. Awesome.